I think it's good. I see. Hi. Are we live right now? I think
We are live.
You didn't give me a chance to fix my breath.
fix the boobs.
All right.
Okay, we're all fixed.
Beautiful.
Maybe
All right.
speak into the mic.
Her book.
Hello, YouTube Live.
One of my books.
Oh, one of the many.
We're here with Michelle Miller. We're about to record a live podcast episode. We will not be addressing comments until the very end, but we will then.
We will address your comments later. And they hopefully will not be completely perverted. We're just going for just one non-perverted comment. Just one. I mean, I'm not asking for a lot.
That's a lot.
All right. So welcome to the ride. Testing 1, 2, 3. Mom,
Testing 4, 5, 6. Testicles.
keep going.
Testosterone.
Oh, I think I might have given you the wrong mic.
I think you did. You want to switch?
Okay, Michelle, maybe we'll go with you. Oh, it's this one. That's why.
Ah. Testing with the correct microphone.
So I can hear that.
Hello.
Hello. Read this. I'm like,
Hello. Hello. Do you like my hat? Yes, I like your party hat.
Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, keep talking.
Vodka Soup for the Widowed Soul. Written by Michelle Miller, author.
All right, Michelle.
Present.
Boys, Booze, and Bathroom Floors. Also written by Michelle Miller.
Awesome. All right. Good. Do you have any your questions ready, or is it all in your noggin?
My noggin, and also I have my notes.
Okay, great.
Bring it on.
All right. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you. Honestly, I was reading this book last night. I don't usually stay up late reading books, and I stayed up very late, way past my bedtime,
Oh.
reading this.
Right, and normally he only reads like Deepak Chopra and very Zen-like books.
So maybe that's
My
why.
book is sort of zen. You mean hearing about boys and booze and bathroom floors
Yeah.
is not zen?
So you gave us both your books ahead of time, and
One is called Vodka Soup for the Widowed Soul. That's the one I was reading. Stories of grief, alcohol, infidelity, cursing, and hope. I could have written this book. This is like exactly
The more I get to know you, the more I think you have.
we have a lot in common there, girl.
and then so I chose the book Boys, Booze, and Bathroom Floors, which I didn't know anything about these books, but this one was all about sex and your dating adventures.
My dating adventures post-loss after my husband's suicide. I think people pick up the book based on the title and they think it's just promiscuity, but there's suicide in it.
So it
just
functions on
lost-
multiple levels.
She threw that suicide in there, and so.
Well, I think suicide should be kind of talked
Yeah,
about like that. Just
exactly.
kind of glossed over. Why is that not part of our normal vocabulary, you know?
Totally. And it's so beautifully written. It made me very excited to even have this podcast so we can promote this to our listeners.
you.
Yes.
It did.
Okay, good.
It's really something not talked about enough, and obviously it's going around like rampant right now, especially with our current latest suicides. It's just terrible.
But hold on, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
The way that you write is very similar to what we strive for on this podcast, which is like extreme vulnerability,
Yes,
honesty,
right.
and authenticity. And
It's literally like a diary.
yeah. It's,
Well,
it's
and
amazing.
it is my diary that I expanded upon, but that's why I connected with your guys' podcast, because it was about this, stigma surrounding sex and sexuality, and how the more you talk about it, the more it becomes a normal part of conversation. And then people are more apt to talk to their children about it or to their parents about it, and that's how I feel about suicide and about sex. It should be something that's just part of our everyday language.
Yes, that's a good point. We can add murder in there too.
Absolutely.
I feel very kindred spirit with you because I'm going to start crying because I've gone through so many of the things that you went through, but you are so young. I mean, I was in my 40s. How old were you?
That is still young. 40s to lose a spouse in the manner that you did.
It is definitely young, but
It
it's
is very young.
It's very, very difficult. At least my kids, 2 of them were nearly out of the house, and one was, I had one left. But you have little kids.
Yes, they were 7 and 11 when he took his life. I was 31.
31, you're a
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
You're still a kid yourself.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, not that it's been that long ago, it's only been 4.5 years, but yeah, 31 is very young. I've met so many other widows who are even younger, 22, 23.
When did you write these books?
So the first book, Boys, Booze, and Bathroom Floors, is actually my diary. So as soon as he died, I just started having sex with everybody.
That sounds familiar. Can we start with that? Because I've always talked about this 9/11 syndrome, how widows need to feel alive again. That's how I felt. I needed to feel alive again. And it wasn't like I was having sex to have a relationship with someone. It was a different type of need to having sex.
Right. Well, sex is the opposite of death.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
There's so much to sex. It's not just sex. After a loss, and it's very common too, I have to say, with every widow I've ever met. Not that all of them are promiscuous after, but it's a lot more common than we think. It's about regaining power back. You lose a lot of power whenever your spouse dies. Yeah. It is also about finding out who you are. So when your spouse dies, or when someone close to you, a child dies, a sibling, you die too. You really do. Yeah. And you have to reinvent yourself. You have to say, who am I? And what do I like? What do I want? And part of that is sex and dating. And who you were before is gone. You have to mourn that loss simultaneously with your spouse, your social life, your health, and all kinds of things. And sex is a natural extension of that. Not to mention the physiological things going on in the brain with trauma and heightened libido, which nobody else talks about either.
Right. I mean, the 9/11 widows they were fucking like bunnies.
Yeah, and spending a lot of money too. I mean, shopping, there's all these things no one
attributes
to grief, but it's like there's so many things that are grief that we don't think, are grief. Karaokeing at 2 a.m. was a huge part of my grief. Nobody talks about that. Well, spending money on, electrolysis machines on Amazon Prime at 3 a.m., that was grief, Nobody talks about that.
I mean, because you don't even have any understanding of it at the time you're going through it.
Correct.
Weight loss, I read that you lost 30 pounds. I definitely lost a good 10 pounds, which when I was already 128.
You're already small.
I was at 118. And I didn't even think I was skinny. I was still I was just, it is scary what your brain doesn't really realize.
That's correct. And you don't know while you're having all these behaviors that are maybe abnormal, not eating too much, fucking everybody, not having sex, you don't realize at the time what's going on with you.
You don't.
It's only looking back going, that was grief. That was me loving hard.
Yeah. And Cam, for example, Cam, how old were you when you had even a little talk with me about my behavior?
I don't remember having a talk with you about your behavior.
You had a talk with me at Georgie V's. You were very upset you knew, I don't think you knew that I was having sex or anything, but you knew that I was not coming home all the time. You knew that stuff.
Zero recollection of this.
Maybe you repressed this. You were you were a teenager.
How old were you when you lost your dad?
17.
So it was probably when you were 17-ish and you were very upset, and you said, I don't know what you really kind of tell me how you felt in a nice, kind way, the way you are. And then you went to the bathroom for a while, and then you came back.
Oh, I remember that conversation being entirely about Dad. I don't remember that being about you.
No. See, this is
a therapy session.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. And then Michelle was like, "Why? I'm in the middle of you guys."
Yeah.
I think the key of the whole thing is that you don't know what's going on. It's like a blur. It's like there's so many things happening. I mean, when I lost my husband, I had to take over his company. I had 3 kids in all different phases of grief, and your friends are giving you shit because you're not being with them. And then you have this need to be with men, even if it's just to talk to them on the phone.
Right. And the Snapchat sex and the sending nudes, I never would have thought that would have been part of my reaction to grief, was just to start taking naked pictures of myself, which are probably surfacing on porn sites all over the country now.
People are searching Michelle Miller naked.
Wait, so what is the reason behind this renewed? You were talking about how sex is kind of the opposite of
death. Yes.
So it is this feeling of I could use sex to feel alive again.
It is.
And it's exciting too. There's an excitement. I was married for 24 years, so you've got to add that into the picture. I was monogamous for 24 years, and then all of a sudden I was single. I was like, wait a second, this is actually kind of fun.
Right.
One thing I found interesting about your book was that you talk at first and you said earlier that it was kind of like you're like renewing yourself and like starting over a little bit.
Yeah, reinventing.
Reinventing,
Sure.
but in the book, it's very clear that during these dates and these hookups,
These bad dates.
you were kind of dealing with a lot of the stuff that had come up in the relationship.
Exactly, and this is where I get a lot of criticism for like, oh, you were hiding from your grief, you were running and you were masking it. What I was working out, a lot of the sex for me, I was very angry at my husband, not just for his suicide, but he was unfaithful throughout our whole marriage. So 3 years before he took his life, I had discovered an affair, and that unveiled to me 10 years of infidelity and this whole secret life he had been hiding. And so I kind of had this attitude of like, excuse me, you cheated on me for a decade, and then your life is so bad, you offed yourself? No, I'm not gonna go down. And so I remember consciously thinking, having sex in the back of cars or wherever, and just being like, ew, I hope you're watching this. You did not kill me, because there's such a self-confidence hit with adultery, and just thinking like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not attractive? What if I'm bad in bed? You know, he was very addicted to pornography, and so there was that too. And I grew up very Christian, where that was, that was cheating. Every time you viewed porn was a mini affair. So I felt like I was competing with porn girls and these other women that he had fallen in love with or had just casual encounters with. So yes, I was working that out through the sex after.
How old were you when you met him?
21.
And when did you?
At my divorce party from my first husband, who I married when I was 19.
Oh my
Whoa.
goodness!
When you met him at the divorce party?
That is how
I know. In life, I don't know what I'm doing in life.
But you are brilliant too. You're one of the best
Obviously
writers.
not.
But
No, seriously, these books are like
Very
so
well
well
written.
written.
Oh, well, thank you.
But here's the thing, and I always say that to all my kids actually, and I'm feeling very maternal toward you right now. I don't think your brain doesn't form until 25.
Right, I'm constantly telling my kids that now.
So you know, and I made the same decision. I just got lucky. I got married. I was with my husband since 21, and I got married at 23. So I mean, I got lucky. But you know, I didn't have to deal with that anger the way you did, and that's such a huge component to I think your books. I feel like, and I'm angry in your books reading. You know how your husband treated you at certain points.
Yeah, it's infuriating. And I'm glad I've been able to put it out there now, and you'll kind of see the progression through the second book. I don't have anger at him anymore. And spoiler alert, at the end of the second book, I do forgive him. I find a way to forgive him through a violent sexual encounter. And
I have like goosebumps all over this.
And I think what I realize now is I can't be mad at him. He was sick.
Right, the way you described that,
Right.
I wanted to get to that as well. The sick part of his brain, and the way you are able to label that. And I think that's a huge part of this whole thing is when you talk to your children in one of the chapters, it's just incredible how you didn't say, Dad just shot himself and didn't explain it. You talked to them and explained to them that it was an illness.
Right, and I had we were seeing a very good marriage therapist for a few years, who I had stopped seeing, but he continued seeing him. So the night that John died, I texted the therapist and said, he suicided, what do I tell the kids? That's all I needed to know. And he was able to say, okay, A, B, and C. It is an illness, and so you equate it to other, if your heart is broken, you have a heart attack. If your liver doesn't work, you die of liver failure. When your brain doesn't work, you die of something called suicide. And then you leave it at that, and then you wait, and if the kids ask more questions, you elaborate. And so it's been this ongoing conversation I've been having with my kids for 4.5 years. And as they've gotten older, I don't think they've had any anger towards him. That might come later. They may have anger at me. I don't know, but so far I feel like putting it in that, and it's strange because I said that to my kids, but I didn't fully believe that until very recently, in the last year and a half, where it really settled in, that wasn't him. That wasn't an attack on me. That wasn't him waking up in the morning going, how am I going to screw my wife over this morning? That was him having unresolved traumas in his life that he did not work out, and it manifesting in depression and infidelity, sex addiction, and things like that.
Mental illness.
Mental illness.
How did you come to that understanding?
A lot of time. I don't believe this whole time heals bullshit. I don't think it heals. I think it's what you do with the time. So I have spent a lot of time researching, reading. A huge change in everything came from I went to a place called Camp Widow, campwidow.org. It is run by Soaring Spirits, and they'd asked me to be a presenter there. And so I thought I'll go, promote the book, help all the widows, and I ended up meeting a huge community of other suicide widows. So speaking with them, hearing their experiences, that they had the exact same
feelings you did.
Yes, and a lot of infidelity, because that was the biggest trauma. That the infidelities were worse than his suicide as far as trauma. And hearing from other suicide widows too that their spouses had affairs, and I would be like, well, like how often were you guys having sex? Oh, 3-4 times a week, and it's like so there wasn't anything wrong. Because you always hear affair, you think the wife is prudish.
No, I don't think that. I don't think
some people
yeah,
think
we
that.
don't think that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think that either. People have affairs.
I like that you're talking.
There's so many
We don't think that.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it so many times on the show that
an affair has to do with the person committing the affair.
Because I look at people like having affairs with celebrities, like gorgeous.
Right? How are you cheating on Pamela Anderson?
Exactly.
Like thinking that in the '90s with Tommy. Like what the hell? She was the most beautiful woman during that time period.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, just a lot of time, I think, research and meeting other people. Community has been huge for me in terms of accepting his mental illness and accepting that none of this was my fault. The only responsibility I have now is how I react to what happened to me.
This is good.
Are we getting deep?
That's good. No, I think that's how everyone can deal with problems. Yeah. It's not always about, it often feels, it's the whole don't take it personal thing. Down we go, Ruiz.
I hope you read the 4 agreements.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just read the 4 agreements.
Okay.
We'll talk later. I think I've spoken, we had 3 podcasts this week, and I think I've talked about the 4 agreements in every podcast, so we're gonna just say, read them.
Okay, all right.
Can you take us through that sexual encounter that, like, allowed
You just want to go right to
forgive
sex?
You just
What's
want to
going
talk
on?
about sex?
Let's talk
Yeah,
about
this
sex,
is sex talk with my
baby.
mom. We better get into this.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to want to talk about the finger in the ass guy. That's what everyone always wants to hear about, the
Oh
finger in
my
the ass
God,
guy from
we
the
should-
first book.
You know,
Okay.
what's weird? You're not the first person to talk about the finger in the ass on this podcast, so
We talked a
Aw,
lot
I
about
wanted
finger
to be,
asses.
I
Are you
wanted to
kidding
be
me?
special. Okay, so the book ends, and again, if anybody's like reading through the second book, this is how it ends. So last summer, I went on, I had been filmed for a documentary. I've been followed around, and one of the things that I had been filmed about is selling my house, which was really hard. So I had all this.
I cried my ass off when I
I
sold
still
my
cry
house.
to think about it, and it's like I wasn't particularly attached. It wasn't this beautiful
No,
mansion.
it's just a
but-
chapter of your life.
Exactly.
A chapter's ending.
And I put it off. I rented out the house. I had moved out, moved down to San Diego, but so this filmmaker was following me around going through this process. So a bunch of trauma had been brought up. My reaction to that was to get on Tinder or Bumble or something. Obviously, so I started swiping. I go on
say,
this.
thank God I was a widow when there was no Tinder or Bumble.
Oh my
I don't know what would have happened.
What did widows do before Tinder and Bumble? What did you guys do? Where did you meet these men? You have to actually do work and go to bars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Do the work
that's
beforehand,
not
buy
nec-
pajamas. And
It's
then go
not
to bars.
necessarily a good thing to do something like that either.
No.
And they're, like in one of your chapters, you talk about being raped. I mean, it is scary that you put yourself in some danger.
Yeah.
Not just you, I'm talking about me too. And
Right, no, sexual assault, and it's never okay, but at the same time, I was putting myself in not safe situations, you know? So at the, anyways, I go on this major sex bender as a reaction to having to deal with selling the house, and I go on another bad date. This guy walks in, I instantly know I don't like him. You know, you can tell on a date. You can see a girl, you can go, I like them or I don't. Usually you can tell in a few minutes. He sits down next to me. He doesn't like me either. We can both tell.
Oh,
It's very
wow.
evident. We're sitting there, and we're kind of fighting through the whole, like,
Oh my
you know,
God.
it's just really, and he's
This
just
is
making
not the one
comments.
with the evil eyes.
No.
Oh, this is a different
This is the last chapter of the book. I don't think we've got there yet. And so we're kind of just like, we don't like each other. But whatever, it's kind of turns into like a standoff. Like, I'm not leaving this date, you fucking leave this date, you know? And we're ordering drink after drink. We get to the end of the drink, we get to the end of the date, and you know, he had made some underhanded comment about, you know, suicide. I had made some comment about, I made a comment about how he didn't look as cute as he did on his profile, you know. I'm just being bitchy, and he's being an asshole. So after this,
Oh my God.
you know, he doesn't pay for my drink, but for whatever reason, we walk out, we close down the bar, and you can just feel this, like, we fucking hate each other. And we close down the bar, and he's like, can you give me a lift home? And I was like, all right. And I remember thinking, why am I giving this guy a ride home? Whatever. So we go, you know, get to his place, and it's just silent. There's this, while it's happening, I think it's just this, like, hatred, but really it's sexual tension. I just didn't recognize it. So we get in front of his like studio.
Was he good looking?
He had a good-looking penis, which is really all that matters in life. So, anyways, we stopped right in front, just stopped short, and all of a sudden he just attacks me, but in a good way. And it turns into this, he literally drags me up to his studio by my hair, and it is so hot.
I love this.
Yes, so I'm not going to go into all these details, but what happens in the midst of this violent, exciting S&M sex thing is something in me releases. And people have talked about this, people that are in the kink community, BDSM, like there is a release, there's something that's been worked out. I don't recognize it, but something happens in the middle of it, and then when I go home that night, for the first time since the affair revelations, which had been 6 years at this point, I slept the entire night, woke up, went pee, and fell back asleep again for 10 hours.
Whoa.
And I don't even realize this till months later, that was forgiveness.
Yeah.
That was forgiveness, letting go of that anger
Yeah.
that I had at my husband, and then realizing too I was angry at myself for not saving him. And that is why sex is so great.
Wow. What does this mean? Why was that sexual act?
I don't know, and this is,
It reminds me of the book we just analyzed.
Which one?
11 minutes.
Oh, yeah. There is a BDSM scene in there that it is similar to this, but I don't. And where's the connection there?
I don't know, and there's in that chapter too, it talks about my best friend Lynette, how she learned forgiveness was that she tried to run her baby's daddy over with a car. And a homeless man came over to her car window and said, and taught her about forgiveness. And what it talks about is everybody talks about forgiveness. You see these fucking memes floating around Facebook and all that, forgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And forgiveness will free you, and forgiveness is this and that. Forgiveness is really whatever you need it to be. You have to come to forgiveness based on your own life experience. Something has to happen. Some people find it through religion. Some people find it through BDSM. Some people find it through almost running their baby's daddy over with a car, It just, I don't know why for me it had to happen in the manner that it did, but it did.
Wild.
And how long ago was that?
That was a little over a year ago.
And how have you been since that year?
After that I got my very first boyfriend,
Are you still with him?
No, thanks for bringing that up.
Oh.
We broke up a few weeks ago,
Oh, no.
but it wasn't for naught. It was my first serious long-term boyfriend.
Healthy relationship.
Healthy relationship, yeah. And
you should have many.
exactly. It was, a lot came after that career-wise. I was able to finish the second book because I had been artistically kind of stunted after the first book. Where do I take it? After that forgiveness episode, the words just flowed into the second book,
So one thing I noticed about the book is that the first, I'm talking about boys, booze, and bathroom floors. The first part of your dating life was very much like, oh wow, this person likes me, but then they kept running away.
Right.
But then it seemed like it started changing when they were.
It did. I feel like men are smart creatures. They can sense desperation and they can sense lack of confidence. And what is that about widowhood that makes you lose your confidence? I don't know. Did you have this
I
experience?
had the opposite experience.
You had more confidence.
Yeah, I didn't have the anger that you did, and obviously because there was nothing that my husband did to me, it was done to him. And I didn't even have the anger towards his murderer.
Really?
I did not, because I sensed that mental illness that you were describing.
Mhm.
How about you, Kim? Did you feel anger towards his murderer?
No.
And then for the same reasons he really was psychotic.
I think there's part of me was like, it was such a strange situation that it's almost like hard to fathom. Like,
Yeah, it's like a fucking bad movie.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, while you're going through it, you feel like you're on
It's so
autopilot.
surreal.
Right.
I can't imagine.
yeah. So it's kind of like it's hard to be angry at this thing that you can barely picture.
Right.
And then I agree. Part of me understands there's like nothing serving me to be angry.
Right. You guys were very evolved that you knew that. I think I didn't understand anger. Anger was always very repressed in me growing up. I grew up with a nice Christian girl. In the same way men are not welcome to express tears, women are usually not open to express anger. We're not supposed to. It's not ladylike or whatever. So I don't think I ever really worked that out or had a concept of what anger was and where it was coming from.
And that affected all of us.
Right.
Because I think as Jews, we're a very vocal community.
Right.
And, we let it out. I
Right.
mean, I think that helped a lot.
Right.
The ability to express ourselves all throughout my life. I've been able to express myself and not take things as personally. I don't know.
It sounded like a lot of the anger that you mentioned in the book, though, is related to the way he treated you.
Yes, like I said, the affairs were probably more damaging, and just that whole I was this great wife,
Right.
Of course, I wasn't perfect, but I was faithful. It was dinner on the table at 6, taking care of a kid, doing all this, and it's like.
And you got even, as you found out more about his affairs, you went overboard to be even a better wife. And
Exactly.
you
I
did
mean, I was
everything.
Martha fucking Stewart,
Yeah,
with
and
leather panties.
leather
'Cause we
panties.
were having hot sex, because I thought, well, maybe the sex isn't good enough. Let's step it up to 8 times a week instead of just the measly 4. Let's bring in toys. Let's do all of this. And so the fact that
it never occurred to you to just leave him and find someone else?
no, I was a Christian at the time. You don't leave your husband, even though in the Bible it is permissible, it's still frowned upon. And so I was, I was a Sunday school leader. I was in church 3 or 4 times a week, and it was like, no, you stay. And he was an atheist, so I had to stay and love him to Christ. That was my job.
Wow.
His salvation was my job. And I don't want to minimize the fact that I was still in love with him. It wasn't just the religious pressure, and then we had kids, and then there was money to think about. But at the end of the day, I really stayed because I was in love with him, or in love with who I thought he was. Turns out it was, he had been faking it all those years.
Because this brings up, for me, and I was reading the book, and I'm thinking to myself, you were in an abusive relationship.
Yes,
And
but it wasn't that way. It was only that way the last 3 years.
Yeah, but it was there for 3 years.
Absolutely
That's a long
was.
time to be in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, again, and I'm not judging at all, I'm just asking you why you stayed.
I loved him, and I kept thinking he was going to come back. Because I had this idea who he was for the first 7 years of our relationship, this great father, good provider, we had a great relationship. I just kept thinking, he'll come back. We just need therapy or sex addiction rehab or meds or whatever. I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the final catalyst was a physical altercation.
Oh, I didn't
And
remember that.
yeah, that's when I finally decided, okay, there's my line. It got physical, and we're gone. And then I left, and 52 days later, he ended his life.
Damn.
Yes, damn.
The first husband, what are your feelings towards him?
I don't know anything about him or where he's at or who he is.
Wow. And when you ended it, was there
He
anger or
also, he cheated on me. I found out he attempted suicide.
Wow.
I know, it's 2 for 2 with the husband.
There's no such thing as coincidence in that one.
No,
I'm not blaming you at all.
No, I
I'm
am
just saying
drawn to
Yeah.
mentally ill people. They are drawn to me. It is a fact. It's who I am. So I'm trying to take that now.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. Mentally ill people love me. I worked in special ed and with behaviorally disturbed and emotionally disturbed children for years. I'm very good at it. But they're drawn to me because they know I have something they need. I'm drawn to them because I know they have something I need, and I feel like I can help them. Like the wounded birdie.
It's a codependent, narcissistic,
Exactly.
symbiotic
Exactly, and I'm
relationship.
very much an empath. And again, I've been, in therapy and researching the hell out of myself these last few years because it was just like, wow, I did that twice.
Yeah.
My first husband stabbed himself. My second one shot himself.
Oh, wow.
There's something where the common denominator here is me.
Well, what about your parents? I mean, how was their relationship, or is their relationship still going on?
My parents are still married, happily married, living in the same house I grew up in as a kid. My mom messaged me this morning and said, "Is this podcast going to be something I can listen to?" I said, "Probably not." Very conservative Christian upbringing. Anytime I've gone into therapy, they always want to explore the issues with my parents. And
I always think that there's, the role models.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at, my parents, not perfect relationship by any means, but pretty damn close to it.
Yeah.
There's 61 years of marriage. They always showed this intense respect and love for each other, and I think that was a good role model for me.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
Right.
It just happened to be Lucky Sperm Club or something.
Right.
But I'm asking, your role model growing up, you never saw any of this kind of stuff going on with
No,
your
I
parents?
think what I saw with my parents was that very traditional, like my mom did the cooking and the cleaning and the child raising. My dad came home from work, ate dinner, went out to the garage and worked on his race car or whatever. And I think the way I interpreted that was that women were subservient to men. Now I realize as an adult that really isn't the way their relationship is. But there was a lot of passive aggressive undertones. My parents never fought in front of us, which I think they were just doing the best thing. They thought it was great. But now I always knew there was times they didn't like each other, or they were angry and they would hide it. So I kind of learned, the way I interpreted that was to repress anger. If you're angry at your husband, you don't tell him. And so that is the perfect setup for me being with narcissistic people or abusive people, because you just have to shut up and take it. And then eventually, I don't. And the thing I have to say too about my parents, it's like, obviously they did something right because I had gotten out. With my first husband, the signs were so obvious right away. It was like, all right, I'm getting out of here now. Second husband, it took 7 years for there to be any signs. But wow, this is like a therapy session. Do I have to pay you after this?
I just, I'm very, very happy for you, because you have started to really evolve. And I think that your self-awareness is incredible. And
It's been a lot of work.
It's just, I feel for you, and I think you support, I don't know if it was there for you.
So this past relationship, the one that just ended a few weeks ago,
Thanks for bringing that up.
What is
was
that?
this with a healthier individual?
A healthier individual, it was different. You were mentioning earlier about how, like, my first book is all about men rejecting me, and me kind of playing that out because I was so used to being rejected. So there was kind of a turn of events after I forgave my husband, where all these men were liking me, and I was having to reject them, or they were liking me more, or just really in love with me for whatever reason. And that's how my last relationship was, very much in love with me, just doted on me hand and foot and took care of me. And I have a really hard time with that. That's ultimately why the relationship ended. I have a lot of intimacy issues now because of the infidelity and trust issues. And so when a man is being nice to me and treating me well,
You're suspect.
I'm like, I just can't, it makes me squeamish. I get physically, my heart rate, like I get anxiety having a man like me, because then I go, oh my God, what if they're obsessed with me and they're gonna kill themselves? When really it's like, no, they just love me and they saw a gift and wanted to get it for me, or you wanted to call me and just say, I really love you and I'm thinking about you today. And so for me, I realized I have a lot more work I still need to do. He's a fellow widower also. So he, obviously has that kind of things to deal with. But it actually was a beautiful relationship at times, because he could relate to me and I could relate to him. Sometimes bad to say about it, but it's just like timing is off.
Timing, and that's why I said to you initially that good, you had a good relationship, and you have several more.
Yes, and that's what I think it was kind of and I'm not even looking for a relationship now, but knowing that I have had the ability to be with a man who, was in love with me and wanted to just take care of me and thought I was great. I mean, it's hard to date with these books. Men always go on dates. What do? I write. What do you write? Nonfiction.
About you.
What do you write about? I'm writing about this date we're on. I'm going to write about this.
Just so you know, you're at chapter 27 in the latest book.
Oh, I got so many calls when the first book came out and texts like, am I in the book? Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm writing a book right now, and I'm definitely not using the names. And you know what? I'm surprised no one has come forward yet of my past. I shouldn't say that, because some of that.
Well, wait till it's all the way out and you're promoting it full time. I still get people going, wait, am I in that book? What about the second book? Am I in that one?
Yeah.
And I'll say, I don't know, I can't legally answer that.
How did you get to the point that you were able to share all this information?
Beyonce.
What?
You respected that?
Beyonce. So the first book is very graphic about sex and dating, obviously, and suicide, and I finished it, and it sat on my shelf. It was actually Beyonce and Cheryl Strait, and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, oh my God, people are going to hate me. They're going to judge me. What if my kids read this one day? What do I do? Oh my God, what do I do? But I felt like I wanted to get this out. Then I thought maybe just writing it is enough. I don't know. So that was in December. Beyonce drops her Lemonade album. And I was obsessed. I didn't sleep for 2 days just watching this, because she put her the affair that her husband had, or affairs, it seemed to allude to, but it was about her healing process. I mean, the visual album was amazing, and the way she turned it, she took this trauma that happened to her and her marriage, flipped it, turned it into art, and just put it out there. And I thought, she has children. Well, at the time she just had one, and she just did what she had to do to heal. And this is how she had to heal. Art is what healed her. And that's what I kind of realized, this is what heals me. Church doesn't heal me. Therapy doesn't heal me. You know, all these things I had tried, yoga doesn't do a fucking thing. But
Cam has you going to a meditation, a silent meditation retreat.
I can't meditate. I can't do any of that. But that's what healed me, and that's what I came to the conclusion at the end of the day was my only responsibility is to my children, and with that, I have to be a whole healthy person to keep continuing the rest of their lives, helping them through this. And for whatever reason, writing a book about sex and putting it out there is what healed me, and it did.
Are you concerned when your kids get to a certain age that they're going to read it?
Not too
Judge you
concerned.
on it?
Well, they know, they know what I do. And I've talked to them about it, like it's a book about how, you know, you guys remember, and I would never lie to them. I would tell them, yeah, mommy's going on dates and things like that.
Mommy's got a finger in her ass.
Mommy's finger in a guy's ass on a Wednesday. I think they are not in any hurry to read a book about their mom's sex life. If my mom had a sex book out, I wouldn't read it, you know?
Oh, Cam used my book in a stand-up comedy.
Yeah, well, you guys have a unique
So I
relationship.
had to though, otherwise I probably wouldn't read it either.
I feel like I've done enough talking with my kids that it's like nothing's going to come as a surprise. I don't think they're going to want to read graphic details.
What did you say about how you teach your kids about sex and the Skittles?
Sex and Skittles. So I've been talking to my kids about sex since they were 2. You know, it was vagina, it was penis, it was never these kids' names.
Good for you.
So, you know, the car is a very captive audience. So I started keeping a pack of Skittles in the glove department, and anytime we're on a ride that's more than 30 minutes long, we have to talk about sex.
Oh my God.
And I quiz
How
them
old are
on
they?
sex. They're 15 and 11 now. But
Oh
this
my
has been
goodness.
going on since they were probably about like 8 and 12. And yeah, so I just
Here
quiz
to
them.
that
on-
viewing audience and listening audience, this is a very good thing. Get yourself some Skittles and the next time.
Except my kids are traumatized and hate Skittles now.
Yeah, Skittles. Oh, not Skittles, not Skittles.
Actually, at first it was very squeamish, and they would, oh, mom, yeah. And then now it has just become like, all right. And I quiz them and ask them questions, multiple choice, fill in the blank. And as they get older, it's more and more. But I like the idea of doing it together. It's kind of this idea: you take the girl to the side and you talk to her about sex. Then you take the boy to the side and you talk to him about sex. No, just everybody talk about sex openly. Like
Let's talk about sex, baby.
That's the second time she's saying this shit.
I sing it
She
all the
sings
time.
every goddamn thing. Wait, so why do you think it's so important to talk to your kids about sex right now?
Because if I'm not, their friends will, and their friends are wrong.
Or they'll watch porn and
Or they'll
find
watch
out how to
porn.
be
I mean,
educated that way.
I'm sure I have, you know, the parental control settings on their phones and stuff, but I'm sure they have viewed some sort of porn, but we've talked openly about that. And 2, with both of their fathers, so my daughters from my first marriage, both of their fathers were porn addicts. And that evolved into affairs and all kinds of things. And so that's what I ever talked to them, like, you know, believe what you want to about porn, but it has addictive qualities. And when you're masturbating to it and your brain releases chemicals, those chemicals in your brain say keep doing that, and eventually it can become compulsive. And then
they're driving, I just wanted
I
to go
just
to the
want a
basketball
Skittle.
game. I wasn't down for this conversation, Mom.
Yeah, but you know, they've gotten used to it, and now I feel like we have a good relationship as far as.
You have a great relationship if you're able to do that. Most people,
It's work though. People think you just sit down and have this one conversation about suicide or about sex or about whatever. It's forever. I will forever be talking to them about.
and they'll be forever
sex.
grateful.
I hope so.
And also, I feel like because you're a single mom, it's even more important. You know, it's just, I think it's actually easier in some respects for me. From when I was married and we would talk together, mostly I'd be, you know, my husband never wanted to talk about sex in front of them, so he'd give it me
You got
that
the
task.
privilege.
I got that task. But it's also, because you're going out on dates and stuff, it's really imperative that they know that what the secrets are going on. They need to know that, you know, oh, okay, Mom slept out that night or whatever, and it was good. It wasn't, she's using protection, and you know, so they don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Right, and it's kind of been interesting because like when I started dating, well, first of all, I had to hide it because I wasn't allowed to, but my daughter like had a boyfriend and she was able to talk to me about it, and I could
Yeah.
understand because I'm out there too.
You can
And
give
I
her a
could-
vibrator.
Good. Oh, this discussion's going on one of my Facebook groups about, you know, should you buy your 16-year-old a vibrator? Because it's better for her to learn that kind of thing
Absolutely.
than to just sit around and wait for some guy who probably isn't going to be able to give her an orgasm for a very long time. So,
Yeah. We were asked that question yesterday on a podcast. They asked,
are you
what-
pro vibrators?
no, they asked, what would you teach young women about sex? And I said, learning their own body through masturbation.
Right. And no talks about that. I feel like they could talk more to men about masturbation.
Kim, do you talk about masturbating with your guy friends?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but women don't.
We don't talk about it.
I mean, it's not like a thorough analysis of. Sometimes we get into details on the ways that, and I have a strange relationship with friends.
No, but when you were younger, say before this whole podcast, and
When did you start talking to your friend, like were you like 12 going, hey guys, so I'm doing this cool thing in the shower, like,
No.
do you guys do that too?
yeah.
It's kind of like that's exactly. It's
Oh,
like
wow,
silly
okay.
conversations
Yeah.
like, have you tried this?
This is fantastic.
Did you try the soap I whacked off the other day? It was great.
Yeah, that's the type.
See, girls, we don't do that.
No,
I think it's not expected that women masturbate.
well, it's not unfortunate. It's very
Right,
unfortunate.
but they
And
should,
then the
they should be
women-
more so masturbating than
Exactly, because if women don't know how their bodies work,
How are they going to teach someone else?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and how this poor guy has gone, I don't know what to do with this thing. What, is that the clitoris? What is that? Is that your asshole? Do I stick a finger in there? What do I do?
Just stick a finger in there. I wanted to chat about. I have a few topics I wanted to get to. You mentioned earlier about how you have a fear of intimacy now,
Yes.
and yet you have a whole book of doing like the most intimate act.
To me, they're
Like-
not intimate. There's sex, and then there's emotional intimacy, I think. I can have the raunchiest sex with someone I don't even know their name. But sex with someone who wants to make eye contact with me, whose name I know, who we're in a relationship, that is very hard for me.
Yeah. So and I have the opposite problem
Mhm.
where
You have to have intimate sex.
I have to have intimate sex because the other stuff feels like, whoa, what the fuck is
That's
going
what
on
intimacy
here?
feels like to me. When a guy makes eye contact, I'm all, whoa, whoa.
So we have this inverse thing going on.
We do.
So what is it about this type of sex, the one that's less emotional, less emotionally integrated, as I think how the psychologist calls it.
Yes.
So what is about that is appealing?
Something about it just feels safe, because I feel like men that are having sex with me like that, there's fucking and there's making love. I can't even say making love.
We got some growth still to
I
come.
need therapy. But I feel like a man that is fucking me, as opposed to making love with me, he's not trying to get to know me. He's not being intimate.
I mean,
and that's safe. I don't want a guy trying to get to know me.
Especially if you don't want a relationship.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
obviously are not wanting a relationship.
I'm not in any place to have one right now. What would I do with a boyfriend right now? I don't know.
You know, when I first became single, I was always with younger guys, and I think specifically because I'm with younger guys, I'm not gonna end up having a relationship with
Right.
someone who's like
It was a
15,
protection
20,
thing.
20 years younger than me. It's not going
Yeah.
anywhere. But that allows you the freedom to just express yourself and not worry about
Right.
any kind of obligations, and that's why I'm writing my book about dating,
Younger guys.
because it really works well for both. If neither one are in a position to have a relationship, then opens the door for all kinds of fun.
And as long as everyone's honest
Companionship,
about it,
yeah,
as long as
yeah.
everyone's like, okay, well, this is just kind of a casual thing,
Yeah.
no feelings get involved, like, why not,
So a couple of thoughts on this.
Yes.
One, the irony that you feel like you don't want people to know you that well,
Right?
and
Then
yet
I put that
you're
out
expressing all these intimate details in these books.
there.
Amazing. Interesting. Okay. Two.
Do I get to comment on
Yeah,
that?
Yeah.
This is like he got you on the witness stand here.
Where's the front
Comment,
line?
yeah.
Can I get a drink? No, I think it is an interesting dichotomy there because it's on my terms, though. The books are on my terms.
Yeah.
When you're in a relationship, you have to think about that other person. And you have to think, well, they probably need me to be more verbally, tell them how much I love them and all of that. With my books, it's like it's completely selfish and for my own therapy, and it's on my terms. I have the control. In a relationship, it's a sexual relationship or boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, you have to think of the other person. With my books, I don't.
Right, because you don't really care once you've had this casual sex with this guy, what he's gonna think about you.
Yeah,
afterwards.
I don't give a fuck because I never see him again.
Right.
Right.
You
You're
could be
not
writing
even-
books about me, I don't
Right,
know.
and you're not even using their names, so.
They're numbers.
They're numbers, I
Yeah.
love that.
I
Wild.
heard them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like the way you go hoe one, hoe two.
Oh, well, yeah, I named the horse, yes, which my editor was like, that might be a little much. And I'm all, nope.
There's nothing too much, I'm glad your
Yeah.
editor.
That's how like they're known on my social media. It's hoe one, hoe
Well,
two,
'cause,
hoe
I
three.
mean, what are they?
Yeah, what? They're
Married
hoes.
women in front of you, flirting and having your husband stick his face in their tits
Yes.
in front of you.
In front of, yeah, they're hoes.
Yeah, they're hoes.
I don't know what else to call that. They don't have names.
I call them not being impeccable to your word, down to your words is for agreements.
Oh wait, that is sounding familiar. I did hear you talking about that. I'm sorry, I've listened to a lot of your guys' podcasts. They're all running together.
I love it.
So the other thought that so right now I'm dealing with, and I've
Premature
been
ejaculation.
classic.
Oh my God.
Yes, of course.
I just had to throw one of those in
You
there.
guys know way too much about each
I'm
other.
sorry. I've been stalking you guys since May. I'm obsessed. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so premature ejaculation, but also and since the beginning of the podcast, the role that sex fits into my life.
Right.
Because I tend to see a lot of people my age, especially men, with this mindset of, hey, sex can be this casual thing that is not totally emotional and connected,
Right.
and you can have it, and it's very pleasuresome, and it doesn't need to be that serious. And this is kind of the mentality that my mom.
Right. This
Who
is why
me?
this plays off so well.
Who,
because-
me?
Yeah, you're like
Yeah,
very,
Miss
you're very
Innocent.
progressive and he's very prudish. That's what it is. And you would think it would be opposite because usually the moms are so.
Yeah.
So, so there's a constant question: am I in the wrong? Am I? It's the blue cheese question, which is like this blue cheese, and no one likes blue cheese when they first start having blue cheese.
I like it on my salad.
I like it.
I like it in my olives with martinis.
Oh, you're from Chicago then.
Oh,
It's a Chicago
So-
thing.
I'm going to Sorry, go ahead.
But
Just
over time, you
Like it.
tasting blue cheese enough, you start developing a taste for it.
Are you comparing my sex life to blue cheese?
That would be my approach to your sex life.
Blue cheese.
It would be blue cheese. It would be like, how many times do I have to try having casual,
Sex before I like it?
emotionally disintegrated sex until I start appreciating it?
So basically you need to go out and just have lots of sex.
I don't know if this is the answer.
Well, why do you feel like there's something wrong with you wanting to have emotional sex? Just find someone that likes that too.
I'm
That's what
worried.
pretty much everyone tells you. You're
Yeah.
okay, Cam.
It's
No.
There's nothing-
I'm worried that down the line, I'll look back and be like,
Damn,
look,
I should have been a whore.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing the FOMO about his sex.
The
But
FOMO
you
about my
have
sex.
had a lot of casual sex. You've had probably more
A few.
casual.
But you don't enjoy it as much as you enjoy like committed
No,
relationship
Right.
connection sex.
But this is like weed for me. The first several times I just smoked way too much weed and I was like, oh, this is the worst experience of my life.
But then when you have it in moderation, it's amazing.
Right.
I don't even know if you like it in moderation
I don't-
now, so it is like
Under
weed.
the right circumstances, very select right circumstances, I can enjoy
I
it.
still try to push him to smoke weed with me, and he's always reluctant.
I'll smoke weed with you.
And have some martinis and blue cheese olives.
Blue cheese olives.
So it's this interesting question about, and it sounds like you are moving, you're like, I need therapy, and I'm kind of moving towards
Right.
this more emotionally integrated sex life.
Right. Well, you know what? I think it just depends on what you want. If I really want to get to a point where I want a boyfriend, I am gonna have to. This is a problem that I can't have emotional sex.
That is when someone told me, because I was, after my husband died, I was like, I don't need therapy, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And they said, wait till you start dating somebody.
Right. It'll bring everything. up.
Everything. And
And
every breakup for someone who has lost a spouse
Oh.
is like magnified.
And you're
It's
having to
on
like
steroids.
re-grieve because there's been, since my breakup a few weeks ago, there's been several back in the fetal position in my husband's jacket. I just want him back. And it's like, I haven't done that in a long time, but the breakup kind of re-stirred that, like, I'm all alone, I'm gonna die alone kind of thing. And how did we get off on that? That's really sad.
Wait, so-
No, this has been my experience with every breakup I've gone through too. It's a very similar feeling to
It's
a living death.
You've
Yeah.
been
You have to mourn
abandoned.
that. Yes, there's a lot of
And
rejection,
it's a fear of abandonment that happens. And
or it's a
and
feeling of loss,
Yeah.
which is
which is the same. Then
Same
you
as-
lost your dad, you
yeah.
lost your husband, and so then it's all tied. I think our brain is like the loss sector.
And
You know,
then
that's
Cam
the thing is all tied in together.
also was attracted
That from
to
my kid's perspective. So.
Yeah, he was attracted, you told me this, you were attracted to women who had lost a parent, usually through divorce,
Mhm.
thank God.
or who had some. I think it's mainly that had gone through some
Something, some sort of
tragedy or trauma that can understand the depth
Right.
that's
Well, you
created
have
in
to
that
be
way.
like, how are you going to relate to someone that's had this beautiful, rosy life? And then they're like, so, how about your life?
Right,
you know, like,
right.
There was
you
Bernie.
can't, they can't
Yeah.
relate to you and you can't relate to them. And I think there's some sort of subconscious undertone vibey thing happening where we
Totally.
attract the people that we need and vice versa.
And I found most of my young guys had lost a father,
Mhm.
and they had this feeling of protection for their mom.
And
And so when they met me, they're like, it was just a very nurturing bond that we had for each other.
No, I found that and I don't know if it's because suicide is so prevalent now, but I have slept with a lot of guys and then later found out they had suicide in their family. They had I'll never forget this one, was it 4th of July a few years ago? I don't know, there was some holiday, I brought a guy home and he knew nothing about me, he didn't know what I did, didn't know anything. We had the sex and we ended up just kind of chit-chatting after, and I kind of liked him. He's a younger guy, maybe 22, he's a baby.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, so what brought you out tonight, or what are you partying for? He's like, oh, you know, it's my brother's birthday. And I was like, oh, how old is he? He's like, oh, no, he killed himself last year. And I was like, oh, God, I'm sorry to hear that. And he's like, yeah, well, my father did it the year before, so I guess it's a trend. He kind of made something sarcastic, and I just remember in my head going, oh, my God. Like, and then we had amazing sex after that.
Of course. Are you at all concerned for your kids that this gene or whatever it is?
Oh, yes. I can't really even go into much detail because I'll just start crying. But that's, again, why I think talking to them about sex addiction, about depression, they have it on both sides of their family. My daughter's biological father, there's suicide on her family, and now my son's. So yes, it's pretty much in my head 24/7. But I try to take it, and the first few years it was crippling. Now I try to take it and put it into action and be proactive about it. We talk about foods that help with depression, exercise that helps with depression, medications if they need that one day. How I had to go on meds for my depression, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just talking and taking the stigma away, especially for boys. Boys don't get to talk about depression in our society. They don't get to go to their friends and cry and say, you know, I'm feeling really sad about this, or this. You know, so I think maybe more concerns for my son, but accepting that suicide is something that's out of my control helps. And then just knowing that there's only so much I can do. And education, I think, is key. And thankfully, we are in a society, we're kind of coming around, you know, with suicide and talking about it in our culture. But
I just heard that a 9-year-old boy killed himself because he came out as being gay.
Yeah, oh. Well, and that's a huge thing, too, in the LGBTQIA community. I'm trying to get the acronym right. And because we're starting to be more open about that, too. Hopefully that will decrease some of the suicides, especially amongst transgender people. I think they have the highest suicide rate of all of the LGBTQIA community. Let me get it right. I'm trying to be politically
The
correct.
whole alphabet soup.
All of them.
I'm interested in this idea of moving forward, how you're going to break this pattern of
suicide, of sex, of what? Which I've got a lot of patterns down.
I mean, it sounds like you're doing the work to break this pattern.
Yes.
But it is a very interesting situation that you found that you are attracted to men with mental illness who are suicidal eventually. And so it's pretty amazing. This is it's a beautiful thing to see you going through this process and to be so open about it and sharing it is.
Did I tell you, Cam? I said, we got to get this girl on the show.
Yeah, there's something
I think
so.
I forced my way on the show. I've been stalking your poor mother.
There's something about the honesty, like living with such honesty can just free you because you have nothing to hide.
It frees everybody else, is what I've learned too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And
we
I-
have definitely found that to be the case.
Yeah,
The more you open up about it,
then
the more
other people open up. And I think Oprah Winfrey talks about how she's interviewed, you know, a bazillion people, and the one thing they all had in common, every single guest, every single movie star, every single person, they all needed to be validated. And I think that's what I seek to do in my work is if you're honest, you put it out there, they feel validated in their feelings because they go, oh my gosh, I get constant emails all day long from people just saying, I've been hiding the fact that I've been having sex since my husband died. I didn't know, I thought I was the only one, oh my gosh, and then they feel validated, like I'm not crazy, this is okay, this is a normal reaction, and then it frees them.
Yeah.
So freeing yourself frees other people.
Yeah, and I mean this goes for therapists as well. A lot of their training is in relation to how do you validate this person,
Right.
and say, yeah, it's okay to have those feelings.
Right.
Often that's all we need to hear.
Right, and that's what I do. I'm a life coach too, and I have this big board in front of in front of my desk in my office where when I'm coaching them, I do it remotely over the phone. Shameless plug, but that's what it says. I just have a big board that says validate, empathize, empower. So that's what I seek to do. You have to validate. You have to meet these people where they're at, find out what they're doing, and then just say that's okay. That's okay. You should feel that way. You should be pissed. You should be drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be weird
Maybe
if
not
you
too drunk, but
not
you
too,
should
but
be
it
drunk.
would be weird if this tragedy happened and you just went on with your normal life. That would be strange.
Yeah.
You know, having sex with men, on bathroom floors and bars, that is not strange. That's a perfectly normal reaction to
Except
a trauma.
if you're a germaphobe.
Yeah. Well, after a few drinks, like germs don't exist. I don't know.
Yeah. I wanted to get into this idea of alcohol because that seems to be a very prevalent theme throughout all this book.
Why? Just because it's called vodka soup for the widow's
And then
soul?
always booze and bathroom floors, alcohol.
Yeah. So alcohol does seem. I mean, where does alcohol play?
So alcohol, I've never been. I was never really a drinker. The whole time I was married, I never drank.
And apparently he didn't either until that one night.
Yeah, he never drank. We weren't drinkers. We grew up in a very small conservative Christian environment, town. Nobody really drank. I saw my dad have a beer at dinner, but it wasn't a big deal. I did some drinking like when I was 18, 19 at frat parties or whatever, but nothing crazy. So we're married, I don't drink, he doesn't drink, and that was the first what? Is he started drinking and going to parties.
My friend noticed her husband's narcotics issues when she saw him smoking cigarettes out of the blue.
Yeah.
She was, what is
It's
that?
like, what? Yeah, why are you all of a sudden doing this? And then it turned into him drinking, and I still didn't really drink, but after his affairs and everything came out, I was just like, why the fuck not? I had such severe anxiety when you've had, the rug pulled out from under you like that. And that's what I used for a while after his affairs was alcohol, and then I eventually had to be medicated. I had the drastic weight loss, and I was very sick. I was hospitalized.
Oh, wow.
For fainting and depression, all kinds of things. It did I was losing clumps of my hair. My teeth were loose from the vomiting. It was such a trauma. So the drinking helped for a while. I ended up going on meds. So I weaned off the meds a few months before his suicide because I had this epiphany I'm taking meds and he's an asshole. Why isn't he on meds? So I got off the meds and was stable, and then he offs himself.
Did he refuse to go on medication?
He did. So our very first meeting with our marriage counselor, he had us run a bunch of tests, personality tests, depression test things, and he said, you have high markers for bipolar, but I can't test you. I'm just a therapist, but you should go to a psychiatrist and have him tested. And he refused because men don't get help.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a man if you go get help. So.
Especially narcissistic.
If he had some narcissist personality disorder in there too. Yeah, it's just very, he didn't get help. So anyways, after he died, I did not want to go back on the meds. I didn't feel like I needed to. It wasn't as hard of a depression as the affairs. So I just turned to alcohol, and it was, part of it too is I started dating, and you can't really date without drinking. So the first few years, the alcohol was very excessive. I don't really drink much anymore, maybe once a week. And it's usually like a cocktail on a Friday or Saturday night. But people still think I'm like this massive drinker. So when I go places, everyone's like, let's drink. And I'm like,
It's just part of the whole, I don't give a fuck.
Attitude, yeah.
I found, and I think that you alluded to this in your books as well, that your best friend's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I had another widow friend, and she and I, and we're still very close, but she and I would just go on these crazy nights where we'd meet guys, and they're like, well, girl, and the first question was always like, how long has it been since you had sex?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second is like, so you're divorced? And we're like, no, we're both widows, but we didn't kill them.
Yeah, you have to say that because men are all woo.
You gotta say that.
Uh-huh.
And then we would be so drunk, we'd been kicked out of bars. I mean, we were just.
Yeah, and my best friend at the time, Lynette, still, she was going through a divorce at the same time I was with it. So it's like all of a sudden we're out into this single dating world. Neither of us were drinking when we were married or going out. Now all of a sudden it was just and we both grew up that same kind of oppressed religious upbringing. It was liberating, and it was excessive, and it was great and precious, and I'm glad I have it in books, but it's not really my lifestyle anymore. I'm in bed by 9:30.
Sound like me.
What do you think the relationship is between booze and boys?
I think it definitely made me less inhibited, and it put me in some dangerous situations that I may not have been in had there not been so much alcohol involved.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that I'm okay right
No,
now. Some of the stuff I did, you don't even know about it, Cam.
Oh
It's
my
just
God.
stupid things, going back to a hotel room with some guy who literally could kill me.
Right, I know, and if you think about it after that, and that's why in the second book when I had that encounter with the sexual assault it was under the guise of alcohol. like I shouldn't have gone to this stranger's, and and I remember seeing him at the bar and going, he has dangerous eyes,
Yeah.
I'm not going with him. And I think had I not had alcohol, I would have not done that.
No.
And then I could have avoided the whole, him standing there naked waving my panties at me as I drove off.
On the other side, it sounds like it's led to a lot of fun nights.
Absolutely. And here's the thing about alcohol. I'm not an addict. I don't have the addiction gene. I can stop whenever I want.
Right.
And there was actually great epiphanies and great things that happened because of the alcohol.
Yeah.
There,
They
I
let
mean,
you get liquid courage.
Yes.
You often
Well, and I feel
ask
like
a group of guys
I
who
feel
wants to
like-
dance with me, That's what I did.
exactly. Or singing karaoke, or just talking to people, or marijuana too. There's one in the first book, like smoking in the back of somebody's car. And I would not have had those conversations any other way.
Oh, yeah, you smoke hash, you're talking like 8 hours to some guy, like, no idea what you're
Yeah, but it's like you have these epiphanies
It
and
seems so
breakthroughs.
brilliant at the time, and I'm like, what the fuck did I talk about for 8 hours?
With
with
alcohol though specifically, like there are epiphanies and breakthroughs I've had that I couldn't have had any other way.
I've never heard alcohol
Yeah.
used in this way,
Mhm.
which is very interesting. I thought that was a big takeaway for me from the book.
Well,
as
people
well.
usually read these books and at the end when the girl gets better and she goes to rehab and she realizes it's like, no.
Yeah.
You know what, I wasn't always, same thing with sex. So sometimes sex and sometimes alcohol was an escape. Sometimes I was masking my grief. Sometimes it was bad for me. But there's lots of times when it was actually good for me.
I think it was
And I get
great.
criticized for that.
No, I would not take away my period of.
Your drunken nights and.
No,
Yeah.
it was fun.
Mhm.
Most of the time, and I don't know, maybe I can read people a little bit. I didn't really, I trusted almost every guy, and I never really felt like in any danger ever
Mhm.
once I was with the guy. So there must have been something that
How long did that period of like
It
drinking,
was-
partying last?
yeah, it only lasted like a year maybe.
Yeah, because it gets exhausting. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just too tired and old now
Yeah,
to be out. I went out for my birthday
and
last
I was
week.
in my 40s.
Oh, I did that. I turned 36 last week, and that took me out. Thank you. And I was done by 10. I was like, all right. And she forced me to stay out till 1, and it took me 2 days to like get back on my sleep cycle.
No, I'm going to
Yeah.
Vegas with my friends, and I'm like, we're gonna go clubbing, we're gonna do all this stuff, and then I'm like, well, let's just think. Do we have to worry about getting a table, because we'll be at the club at 10 and we'll be
Right.
out by 11, and probably no one's gonna show up till 1, so I think we're pretty good.
Yeah.
We have to wrap it up, unfortunately.
Okay. Aw,
Oh
so
my
sad.
God, this was like one of my favorite interviews ever.
Same.
I'm interviewing you next. I want you on my Facebook.
Oh, we're there, we're there.
Maybe you.
I'm down.
Maybe bring this.
I have
together.
all my Facebook is all widows. They would just, oh my God, they would feel.
So how do people find your work?
The main place is just my website, mouthymichellesmusings.com. That is not a blowjob reference.
Wait, say that again.
Mouthy Michelle's
Mouthy,
Musings.
mouthy,
Yes,
yeah.
that's my whole Instagram is mouthy_Michelle. But the website, if you just go to the website, mouthymichellesmusings.com, it has my merch store. You can sign up for widow coaching. You can get my books. You go, links to all my social media. Yeah, that's really where it's at. And I just started my Facebook fan page. So it's kind of growing, but.
Follow her, guys.
Follow her, you will
Yes.
not be sorry.
And have you ever walked in on a parent having sex, or have your kids walked in on you?
Thinking
or
you might ask me that on the way up here. My daughter has definitely walked in on sex, and the next day my husband went and bought locks for the doors. She was little. She was like 3 or 4. I don't think she remembers, but I do remember walking in on my parents. When I was like 17, I remember I had gone out and came in late. My mom would always say, well, when you get in, just yell, hey, I'm home, And so I walked back and I could hear it.
Oh.
Oh,
You're-
and that is all I want to say about that. Change the subject.
Well, thank you very
Thank you
much for
very
coming
Thank
on
you
the
guys
show.
for having me.
This is awesome.
Aw,
Group hug.
Group hug. Get over here, groupie. Aw.
Bye.
Bye.
That was awesome.
Woo, that was fun.
And that
We
was.
put
we
you on the
still on
hot
there?
seat. Thank you for
And
opening
it
up
was
with
fun,
us.
of course.
Yeah.
This is lovely. It's nice to talk to people. You guys are good at what you do.
Break my phone? Oh, that's a nice picture of your face. I can't. turn it
Thank
off.
you for watching for 64 minutes. Do we want to chat about their questions?
Yeah, are there questions on there?
Only potential spam messages.
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah. This is the love.
Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.